Sure. Thank you everyone for joining us. What is now our fifth virtual layer-fMRI dinner. I wanted to wait a little bit for people to come and join. So thank you to the speakers for waiting as well. And thank you obviously to everyone for attending. So the title of today, the theme of today's meeting will be what can we learn about cortical layers using laminar fMRI. And I'm gonna give you, sorry to bother everyone, I'm gonna give a very quick few minutes introduction before we can get to the exciting stuff and hear these beautiful talks that are lined up for today. These are the fifth of our meetings over the last couple of years. And I kind of feel compelled to, again, explain why we call it dinner, because you know, people are giving me a hard time, jokingly, but not so jokingly either. I'm joking, but yeah, the reason why it's called dinner is like originally when Renzo, who is kind of like, you know, the driving force, at least one of the driving force, not the driving force behind this meeting, reached out to organize some like satellite meeting. Was meant to be in person for at ISMRM that was meant to occur in Australia before the pandemic. We were actually planning to organize this as an informal dinner event where we could chat about layers and like laminar fMRI and all the abstracts and beautiful work that is happening at this within this layer fMRI community. And so originally it was meant to be a dinner, and we also like designed a flyer. We had everything set up before the pandemic hit and stuff. And then from there, we kind of like moved it to online, this virtual environment. And it was my mistake. I left the word dinner on the flyer, and then it kind of like carried on. And so we kind of like left it as like, you know, fifth or first virtual layer fMRI dinner back then. And then, like as Ravi was pointing out before, it is dinner somewhere in the world. So we kind of go with that. But that's kind of like the reason why it's called dinner. It's just like a mistake that was carried out, and we just decided to keep going. But yes, the layer fMRI or cortical depth fMRI, it is a growing field. And there's this beautiful figure on, if you don't know it, go check it out on Renzo's blog, the layer-fMRI.com. Probably everyone who's here knows about his blog. And if not, you should really check it out. It's a blog with the collections of pretty much everything that is happening in the layer fMRI field at this point in time. And look at this graph, you can easily see that from the early onset, from the first paper in the late 90s, until today, the number of publication is being growing exponentially. As such, we kind of like felt compelled, that was our motivation to start this network, this idea with this like layer fMRI dinners, which then obviously became a virtual meeting. And our initial goal and current goal is to facilitate and promote the growth of this layer fMRI. And to do so, in order to do so, we would like to provide an environment where we can openly discuss hot topics, where we can share ideas and experiences, promote specific analysis pipelines, and also discuss differences across analyses, learn and discuss how to build a healthy scientific community, and educate young scientists to perform and evaluate mesoscale fMRI research. Obviously, we're trying to put a lot of effort into this, but to be successful, we need an interactive environment. So please do reach out if you want to be involved, or even just for discussion. And the main means for us to interact with one another is Slack channels, which is owned by Cheryl Ullmans, who was the original brain behind all this. It all happened because of Cheryl, and you know, she's the one that really pushed forward with this. And so thank you again, Cheryl, for keep hosting this channel and making all this possible. And then there's other means of interaction. There's the layer fMRI Twitter, and as I mentioned, the layer fMRI blog, both by Renzo. And we got this laminouts.com that is mostly managed by Tyler, and the associated laminouts email, gmail.com, if you want to reach out. All talks are recorded, and they are online on the Layer fMRI YouTube channel, and they've total up until now 3,500 views, again as a testament of the growing interest around this topic. And we provide also DOIs for the abstracts on Zenodo, so they can be also cited, which is interesting for us. So I'm just going to go back to this first slide very quickly before we dive into the talks to point out that yes, it's a growing field, but if you look at this portion here, the graph, the majority is still like carried out at 70 or even higher field strength. And obviously, you know, field strength is one of the main prerequisite, or so we thought, to carry out layer-fMRI or cortical depth fMRI because of the increased SNR, but also because maybe of the properties of the hemodynamics at that field strength. However, it also represents one of the main limitations for making this field more mainstream. There's lots of 70s in the world, and, you know, continued development with gradients like in David Feinberg's, and also, you know, continued development hardware with bigger and bigger scanner like the 10.5 that we have, and we're starting to this data at CMRR like the 11.7 that obviously make our research possible. But we would also like to see layer-fMRI to become more readily available for people without immediate access to 70 scanner. And to this end, I should remind that one of the first paper was actually the one by Ravi Menon in 1999, was carried out at 4T. And there is an ongoing effort for layer-fMRI at 3T. And there's a few papers which right now represents more or less the 8% of the total number of papers, laminar fMRI. And the results are really promising. Obviously, requires more validation, and ideally we're discussing with Renzo and Tyler that one of the future meetings would actually revolve around comparison between 3T and 7T cortical depth dependent results. But it's very encouraging to see that people are starting to do this also like a more standard field, which we believe may help promote the growth of this discipline. So that's all I have to say for today. So going back to today's theme, what can we learn about cortical layers using laminar fMRI? We got some fantastic speakers, Serge Dumoulin, who's going to talk about how population receptive field properties change across cortical laminae from vision to cognition. Anna Devore, who's going to talk about layer-resolved imaging of resting state CMR02 in awake mice with phosphorescent O2 probes. And then Lars Muckli, who is the person that actually introduced me to layer-fMRI. So, you know, you have to blame him because you have to put up with me for so long. It's his fault. And I'm extremely thankful to Lars, obviously, to introduce me to this beautiful word. Who's going to talk about from men to non-human primates and mouse to top-down streams in different layers of retinotopic visual cortex, the ground truth. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and mute myself. Please everyone, mute yourself as well if you haven't already done so. And I'll leave the floor to Tyler, who's going to give a brief introduction.